When I was young, I was absolutely convinced that I was going to be a loser.
Mr. Joe Rogan, give him a hand.
Let's take this guy who's never even thought about being a commentator and make him our commentator.
Derek, why'd you take your pants off?
My balls was hot.
I understand.
Because you're an actor on a sitcom. Are you fighting in an Ultimate Fighting Championship?
No, I just interview the fighters.
The host of NBC's Fear Factor, Joe Rogan.
I will forever always be the Fear Factor guy.
I'm Joe Rogan. Welcome to Fear Factor.
I was basically a loser. I had no money and no future prospects. There was no promise to me. I was like, where's this guy going?
New Jersey, 1976. Joe Rogan is born to unfortunate household.
All my damaged shit came from my real father. My real father was crazy. He was like a psychotic person.
Is there a violent person in there?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of violence in me for sure.
Is it connected to the dad at all?
I'm sure it's connected to him also because he was violent and it made me feel very scared to be around him. But I also think it's connected in who he was as a human is transferred into my DNA. I remember one time me and my cousin got in a fight over nothing. It was like over who's tougher, King Kong or Godzilla.
Yeah.
I thought I was in like real trouble because I remember my cousin's mom was yelling at me and it was like, you monster, all this crazy shit. So my dad got me alone, just pulled me in a room, shut the door. I'll never forget this because I was 5 years old. I remember what the dresser looked like. I remember what the sheets looked like on the bed. And he goes, what happened? And I told him we got in a fight and I punched him in the face. And he goes, did you cry? I go, no. He goes, good, don't ever cry. And I remember that, like, whoa, okay. So I go from that to this other dude who's like super nice and he's really smart. He's a mathematical genius. He's a computer programmer. Takes my mom and he marries her. And all of a sudden I have this new dad.
Joe was glad to see his mother in a much healthier relationship, but the arrival of his stepfather brought its own set of challenges.
Mom married my stepdad. We moved across the country from New Jersey to San Francisco, and then we lived there for a while, and then we moved to Florida, and then we moved to Boston, and we moved around a lot. And so the bad thing about that was I didn't really develop long-term friends. I just was always the new kid, and the new kid gets with. Yeah. Like most of the time it was no big deal. Like at 9 and 10 it's no big deal, but when it gets to be like 13 and 14 then it starts getting violent. Kids would pick on me and I didn't know how to fight, and it drove me crazy. Like I was like, God, I hate the fact that when these kids want to fight me I don't know what to do, and I'm terrified. So I go home the long way around, so I'd avoid everybody and that kind of shit. So I decided to learn martial arts. I said, well, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of people that know how to fight. Well, I'm gonna really know how to fight. From 15 till I was, 21-ish, 22, constantly obsessed with martial arts. I mean, I trained almost every day. I was competing from the time I was 15. I just threw myself into it. It's all I did every day. I worked at the school. I was there every day. I had the keys. I closed up. I opened up. I'd go there in the middle of the night and open up and work out. I just wanted to just have an edge. I won the Massachusetts State Championship 4 years in a row, and I won the American Open when I fought the national champion in the finals. That was when I was like 19, 20. That was when I was at my best. That was like the first thing that I ever did that made me feel like I wasn't a loser. Yeah. It was like the first thing that I ever did that I got really good at. I realized like, wow, if I focus on something and become obsessed with something, I can get really good at it.
Is there advice you can give to young kids that are living through a shitty situation of any sort?
Find a thing you like. Find a thing that you genuinely enjoy. Like, everybody thinks they're a loser. At least a young person in the situation I was at. Like, I didn't know I wasn't a loser until I started winning, until I started doing martial arts. People like respected me and they liked me for it. All of a sudden there was this feeling that I was unusual. I was unique. I was special.
I mean, I always wonder, like, what would have happened to me if I didn't discover martial arts? I would have been a completely different person. I'd probably been very lost.
As Joe continued to improve, his passion grew even stronger, fueling even his dream of competing in the Olympics. Little did he know that these plans would take a turn he had not expected.
There was one time that I never recovered from. When I was 19 years old, I fought in this tournament in Anaheim, California. It was the Nationals, and I was the Massachusetts State Champion. I was fighting this kid. They had their whole team with them, and there's all these people in the stands that were, I remember saying, come on, Johnny, get him, Johnny, get him, Johnny. And I knew this dude was just a little slow. And I hit him harder than I've ever hit anybody in my life. I hit him with a wheel kick, I hit him so hard, I was limping for a couple days afterwards because my heel hurt from hitting his head. And he went out, face plant, snoring. He was unconscious for half an hour. They carried him off in a stretcher, and they eventually carried him off, brought him to the hospital, but he literally never stood up and walked around. I went back to talk to my instructor, and he said to me, I heard you had a really good knockout, with his thick Korean accent. And I go, yeah. I go, I thought he was dead. He never got up. He goes, sometimes they die.
Wow.
And then he walked away.
Wow.
And then I was like, oh shit, sometimes they die. Holy shit, I'm them. Them is me.
Whoa.
Like, I could die. I was 19. And I remember I never thought about it the same way again. I never thought about hitting someone the same way again. It changed my feeling about it. I didn't have the same enthusiasm after that.
Joe no longer had the ambition of being a professional fighter and needed to work out a new direction. Fortunately, it was in the process of his endeavors in mixed martial arts that his next passion unveiled itself.
We would go to compete, or we would be about to spar, and I would be the guy who would make everybody laugh. Because everybody was so nervous, because it was scary. You beat the shit out of each other, Because we were like on a bus driving to New York together to go get kicked in the face. And
Trying to laugh.
and I would just make jokes, because it's very likely that one of us might get knocked unconscious.
You were fighting, and then your pal talked you into becoming
My
a
friend
stand-up comic.
Steve Graham, literally grabbed me by my shoulders and said, you should be a comedian.
So then what happened?
I went to an open mic night.
I can't even hear the word marriage. It comes out of a girl's mouth, my brain just shuts off. It's like, marriage, click. Every word after marriage is...
Like with mixed martial arts, Joe was obsessed with comedy. The only problem was it was a bit harder than he expected.
The adrenaline rush of doing stand-up was unexpected. That's why it freaked me out, because I didn't think I was going to be so nervous, and I was shitting my pants. I just didn't have a background in performing. It was just so crazy. I was so nervous about it, but I had fought like 100 times. It's just so weird that getting kicked in the head didn't make me as nervous as talking to people.
How long was your first beat, and was it open mic?
It's open mic, yeah. I think they gave you 5 minutes. And I don't think I even had 5 minutes. I think I had 4. That was terrible when I started.
Stand up?
Yeah, they were awful. The stuff that I'd written. I even had a piece of paper that I brought with me on stage because I was terrified I was going to forget. Occasionally I had some good jokes, but I was bad at putting it together. But I didn't know how to write.
After years of being a struggling comedian, Joe was in desperate need for money.
As an early comic, so broke. Just barely eating enough. I would get gigs at Dangerfields in New York City, because Dangerfields you get a free cheeseburger. So I would take gigs just so that would be my dinner. I knew that I had food.
So he decided his best option was to get into acting. And at 28 years old, Joe finds himself on a show called News Radio.
Why don't you fix it over there?
Because the light's better over here. Damn, everything's better over here. I remember the first day on the set of News Radio. I'm like, how did I get on this show? And then all of a sudden I'm on this show with Phil Hartman and Andy Dick and Dave Foley. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I've been acting for all of 4 months ever. I did one terrible TV show.
Yeah. And here you are.
2 acting classes. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where upstage was. I was on television. They're like, Joe, could you move 6 inches upstage? I'm like, which way's that?
Despite Joe's lack of any real experience on the acting frontier, News Radio went on to become a huge hit that ran for 98 episodes over 5 seasons. After years and years of struggling, his big break finally came. You might think, logically, that he would continue building his acting career. But that couldn't be further from what did.
I hated being around actors. You deal with a certain kind of person that is 60% insane. I felt like I didn't belong there. I felt like I couldn't be myself. Everybody was reading the Hollywood Reporter and Variety on set. I'm like, what the f*** are you guys reading this shit for? They're not fun to joke around with. They're shitty. They backstab. They undermine you. This weird play that people were putting on, where everybody was trying to pretend to be something so that they can get auditions. I remember at one point in time, the producer of News Radio said to me, he was like, why are you still doing stand-up? You're an actor now. I was like, oh no.
I'll never take that away from you.
I was like, oh no, I gotta get out of here.
While acting had, by far and away, been the most successful thing Joe had done, it was not authentic to him. He wanted to focus on what truly brought him joy doing what he loved with people he cared about.
I'm looking at the plug, the thing that you're here to promote tonight. It says the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm back here right now backstage. I'll be interviewing the fighters as they come out of the octagon.
I started in 1997. I was the post-fight interviewer. That was it was just a position that was available, and the UFC was very small back then. Very few people knew what it was. They didn't give me any instruction. Nobody told me what to do. They just said, "Do you want a gig interviewing the fighters after the fights?" I was like, "Sure." I've always listened to my own instincts in terms of like, what do I enjoy doing, whether or not it's a good career move or not. Like, the early days, MMA wasn't a good career move at all.
Explain this to people that don't know. Ultimate Fighting, you can do whatever you want.
Not anymore. No, it's not exactly that way. What Ultimate Fighting is it's in a cage. It's in an octagon. And it's like a combination of boxing
The minute
and
you
wrestling.
say it's in a cage,
Yeah.
you lose people's respect.
But why?
It was so rinky-dink. Like, we would go to these like half-filled high school auditoriums.
There was no referee, there was nothing. It was terrible. What it was at the beginning was human cockfighting.
Human cockfighting.
It's sort of like human cockfighting in my view.
The people that I was working with, they would talk to me about it like I was doing. They were like, why are you doing this? You're going to Alabama to do some cage fighting commentary? Like, what are you doing?
If it gets out of hand, it's very safe. I mean, no one in all the... What's up?
Even though it wasn't affecting my career in a good way, I was still into it. And I was loving that this new thing was around, so I was happy to be there. There was no money to be made. There was no money for the fighters. I mean, it wasn't I wasn't getting screwed. It was just that's all it was. If I could do a comedy gig, I could make like $2,000 for a weekend.
Right.
So I was like, why am I doing that when I can make $2,000? I make them like one instead of two. So it was just costing me money, and it just got to a point where it was too much of a pain in the ass. And so I still remained a fan, but I backed away.
Then it was the start for more opportunities to come in.
I'm Joe Rogan. Welcome to Fear Factor.
Fear Factor. Fear Factor. I will forever always be the Fear Factor guy. I came into this meeting, I was high as and they were telling me what they wanted to do. I was like, what are you going to do? You're going to make people eat animal dogs. You're going to sick dogs on people. You're going to throw people off buildings. This is the most insane idea for a television show I've ever heard. This is going to be canceled immediately, and I'm going to have all this material about, remember when I used to host Fear Factor?
I want to feel it.
Don't touch it. Whoa! Grab it. No.
And it was a giant hit. It was a giant hit.
Huge show.
And like immediately it was a hit. I was like, this is so stupid. This show is so stupid. And there was a couple of times where I told them, don't do it. I went to the producers. I'm like, don't do this.
What were they?
One of them was bull riding.
Okay.
They were going to have these people ride bulls. Okay. And they're in the cage, right? And they're bang, 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 bang. They're trying to get out of the cage. I'm like, don't do this. I'm like, don't do this. We just rolled the dice. They rolled the dice.
Was everyone okay?
Everyone was okay. Luckily, it was good because it was money. That's what it was good for. It was good because I didn't have to worry about money. Because I don't have like extravagant tastes. I'm not too ridiculous with money. But I like feeling like I don't have to worry. So it gave me money where I had money squirreled away. I was like, ooh, I can relax now. Now I just do what I want to do. And what I wanted to do was like these MMA shows.
Truly is an honor to welcome back to the broadcast team here on the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the host of NBC's Fear Factor, Joe Rogan.
So when we bought the UFC was based in New York. So after we bought the company, I jumped on a plane and I flew out here, and I had to go through the office and figure out what I was going to bring to Vegas and what I was going to leave. They had tapes piled up to the roof. So I'm in there with a VHS, popping all these tapes and seeing what was what. And I pop in a tape, and it's the Keenan Ivory Wayans show. And he's got Joe Rogan, who was the Fear Factor guy at the time.
Yes.
And Joe Rogan was talking about how badass UFC fighters were and what they would really do to some of these karate guys that were in movies and shit like that. And I was like, man, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's smart, he's funny, he's articulate. I end up reaching out to Rogan. He's awesome. We hit it off.
I was talking to him about fights going on in Japan. I'm like, have you ever seen Sato fight? Do you know do you know Sakura? Do you know this guy? And I was bringing all these names, and he was like, do you want to do commentary?
And he says, wait a minute, so you're telling me that I can have the best seats in the house for every UFC event and talk about the UFC? He's like, I'll do that for free.
And I said, look, just get me there, get me and my friends tickets, and I'll do it. And then I just became the commentator.
Tyson Griffin got some serious leg kicks. If he was a girl, you would say he has a badonkadonk.
Oh, wow, look at all the ice all over. We got a problem. Someone spilled ice in the octagon. Look at that, they knocked the bucket over. This is the goddamn Three Stooges.
What are you freaks doing?
This is Joe Rogan doing play-by-play of ice. Short black trunks for Jones, white trunks for Guzman.
Or black guy Jones, white guy Guzman.
That was said by Joe Rogan.
I love the media and I love everything about this sport. And I love you, Joe Rogan. I love you, Joe Rogan. I love you, Joe Rogan. I freaking love you, Joe Rogan.
I love you too, buddy. Welcome back, and I can't wait to see you fight for the title.
What's up, Train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
We are broadcasting live.
Hello, world.